Okay, so I have a story here about this car that's parked in the handicap parking spot. This picture was taken June 21st, 2025 on Shaw Avenue where I used to live, and that used to be my handicap parking spot. And in it, you see Scott Gribbling Park, a violent convicted offender. So here's the story I want to tell you. I had that spot installed in June 2022 at a time when I was in bad shape. I was suffering pretty badly. I had an open wound on my chest from a mastectomy. I had mastectomy and reconstruction of my breast, and my breast was reconstructed from my own tissue. So I had a hip to hip scar from where the tissue was harvested. And I had swollen legs from the chemotherapy. The lymphedema jacked me up, and I was in pretty bad shape when I got that handicap parking space. So, what happens in June 2022, days after my parking spot was installed, I get a phone call from Lansdale Public Works Director Chris Kunkel. Listen to the message.
Yes, hello, Ms. Laws. This is Public Works Director from Lansdale Borough calling. Calling in regard to the handicap parking signs we put in front of your house last week. If you kindly give me a call back, I sure would appreciate it. You can reach me on my mobile phone at 215-237-9748. Thank you.
Okay, so I call him back to find out what he wanted to talk about my spot because I thought he was going to talk about the fact that it was 6 feet shorter than code. I couldn't fit in the spot. And the first thing out of his mouth was, "Are you in a neighbor dispute with your neighbor next door?" I said, "Yes, but what does that have to do with my parking spot? Why are you asking me about a neighbor dispute?" He said, "Well, I've been monitoring your parking since the parking spot was installed, and I don't think that you're parking in it appropriately, and you're abusing." Basically, told me I was abusing my handicap parking privileges by not fitting in the spot properly, and that I was encroaching on my neighbor's parking spot, and that he was going to report me to committee for abusing and get my handicap parking revoked if I didn't immediately start fitting into the spot to his satisfaction. I'm like, "What are you talking about? I can't fit in the spot. The spot is too small." And he's like, basically, "Be nicer to your neighbor," and hung up on me. So I immediately called Lansdale Police and tell them, "Look, I'm getting harassed at my home by the Public Works Director. He had no legitimate reason to call me at my house and harass me about my handicap parking spot." Listen to what Christine Schreiner, police assistant, had to say.
Teresa, it's Christine. I talked to Public Works. This space is 20 feet. So he will go out and look at it later, but probably not until sometime next week. But he said they are all 20 feet. So, all right. Thanks. Bye.
So what happened here? Let me kick it to you. Basically, he called me because he knew if he came to my house, the harassment would have been on my video. He didn't want that on video. That's why he called me to harass me. So it'd be my word against his. And then he had his staff intentionally make that spot 6 feet too small. Now, to believe he didn't intentionally harass me, you have to also believe that the public works director, when he was monitoring my parking and the fact that I didn't fit in the spot, didn't notice that it was 6 feet too small. Do you really think he didn't notice it was 6 feet too small? And then when I complained about the harassment, him or someone on his behalf, because Christine Schreiner wouldn't identify who she talked to. She just said Public Works, but he was the director, so you can't delegate accountability. The buck stops there. Him or Chris Kunkel or someone on his behalf lied to Lansdale Police and said the spot was 20 feet when it was 14 feet to justify the harassment of me, basically. And further to my point, if he thought it was urgent enough to violate the sanctity of a handicapped person while they were at home to say that he needed to discuss the spot because I was abusing it. But I moved over 2 years ago. So you mean to tell me it was urgent enough to disturb a known handicapped person at home, to violate the sanctity of my home? But 2 years later, that handicap spot is still there. And what's going on? You're letting the violent convicted criminal park there. I called the police and they came out, and I'm sitting in my car waiting for him to give him the ticket. And Officer Thompson, badge 51, I get up and go up to him, and he said, well, I got to call him first. I got to let him know, basically he was giving him a chance to move it because he didn't want to ticket him. And I'm thinking, okay, which is what they've done many times in the past when I reported Scott for illegal parking. They will call him and say, oh, well, he moved it, so we don't have to ticket him. But me, okay, if it's anything about me, I immediately get cited right away. I was cited 4 times just based solely on Scott Gribling's allegations. And they couldn't even tell me I was cited. So I got arrested. They didn't even tell me I was arrested, but you can call a violent convicted criminal. He's in your phone. That random officer who responded to the call about the handicap parking, you just happen to have Scott Gribling's number in your phone, and you just happen to feel like you need to call him, but you can't call me and tell me I'm arrested. The officers can't call me and tell me I'm arrested, but you can call a violent convicted criminal. These people harass me. They force me out of my home. And this is ridiculous. They have no explanation for this. They're evil.